Hi everyone, welcome to DIY Ideas. So today I have an upcycling project for you. We're going to make a jean skirt out of some old jeans that are maybe torn or you don't want to wear anymore. So we're going to use that and we're going to make a really cool project. So I'm going to show you all that we're going to need for today for this really nice skirt. So we're going to need fabric scissors, something to measure with, then some pins, some thread in the matching color to our fabric, and some fabric chalk. So we want some marks, so that's what we need that for. Then something to measure with. Here I have my hand gauge, and I want to make squares that are all the same size. Then last but not least, we need a zipper that we're going to use for our skirt. Make sure that it's not out of plastic, that it has these fabric sides, but apart from that, it's pretty much the same, whichever one you decide to use. So I'm going to use some old jeans that I have, and I already have some squares cut out, so I'm going to show you how you can do that. But yeah, we just need the same size and as many as possible. So use any jeans that you have or that you want to use, and then we're going to do our skirt. So for my size, I needed about 3 old jeans for the skirt. You might need a little bit more or less depending on what size you're doing and how big your jeans are, so the size of your jeans. So before we get started, we're going to need some measurements. So you're going to need your hips and your waist. And yeah, make sure that it's wide enough so that your behind also fits in the skirt. So in my case, I have a waist that's about 69 centimeters. Not the waist, but the hips. And yeah, since we have corners or squares like this, we can basically make it really, really nice and just do the size that we want. So this is going to be easy to do whatever size you need and whatever size your hips are. And yeah, this is where the corners, I keep saying corners, this is where our squares work really well with any possible size. So also what I like to have is these edges, so I want to have the front and the back, and we can do that as well. But yeah, it's going to be easy to do. So I want to have 4 squares in the front and 4 in the back approximately, and you can do more or less, or you can do smaller or bigger pieces, but this is what I'm going to do for today. So make sure that whatever size of the square you need or you use, you'd have 1 centimeter on each side for the stitches, so they are going to take up some space and they're going to make your square a little bit smaller. And since I want my skirt to be about 40 centimeters long, I need 4 pieces. So I want 4 squares that are going to make up its length. So that's how I measured how much I want it to be tall. So each square. And it's about 10 centimeters, a little bit more for the stitches, but that's pretty much the size and how I calculated it. So depending on your size and how many squares you want, I recommend you to do the same. So this is basically my standard, and I'm going to make every next square the exact same size as this one. So now what we want to do is basically measure out the length here that we have, and then I have here 12 centimeters plus the 2 on each side for the stitches, and here I have 10 plus the 2 on each side for the stitches. So yeah, now what we want to do is basically mark the leftover fabric of our jeans and basically cut out the exact same size pieces, as many as you can get from your jeans. So I already know that I want 4 times 4 in the front and then 4 times 4 in the back, but depending on the number and the size you're doing, this number may vary. So yeah, now I'm going to show you on the jeans itself how you can do this. So make sure that you work with the stitches, and you see here, I'm going to show you where my square basically fits in here, but we just want to work as the stitches are going. So I'm leaving it just flat like this on my surface, and then and just use the stretchiness and then work with it so that you can have your squares perfectly done. Now you can basically put your square on pieces where you want to cut out and just mark and then basically cut out. Just make sure that you don't have any stitches on the square itself because that's going to make it a little bit weird. But yeah, I'm just basically moving the square around and looking for spots where it can fit in. If it's a little bit too small, then just leave that out for another project. It's going to be way easier than if you try to work with the stitches because that's going to be a little bit more challenging. So yeah, just make sure you have enough in its width and then basically mark with your fabric chalk or whatever else you have, and all that you need is then to cut it out. Try to be smart about it and use as much fabric as you can. So start at the spot where it's just about enough and then work up from there. So yeah, now that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to pin this as well and get started. So this is what your squares should look like now that you've cut them out. You can iron over them in case they're a little bit wrinkled. I even took these pieces out with some holes inside, so I really like that style and I want to use that as well, but you can skip those if you don't want them or specifically target those if you do. So that's completely up to you. So now what we want to do is just make sure that all the sizes are the same. If you pinned everything nicely and cut it out precisely, then it should be just fine. And yeah, I have here two different kinds of fabric since I have two jeans that I used, but you can use all the same or absolutely different pieces, so that's completely up to you. So now that you have all of the squares done, you want to align them in a pattern that you like, and then we can get started to the sewing. So I'm going to show you that in a moment, the way I decided to design my skirt. So here is how I decided to align my pieces. So of course this is completely up to you. You can see most of mine are actually the same, a little bit darker maybe some, and then some a little bit lighter, and I just have the one with the hole. So now that we can put them together, I'm going to show you how you can do that. And there are many different ways depending on the style of the skirt that you want in the end. So one way we can do this is basically just do stripes. So basically connect all of the squares into different stripes and then work from there with the final shape and size of the skirt. And then put it all together and do just a little band on top and basically tie it that way around your waist so that it also stays there when you wear it. So that would be the one pretty casual version. Then another one, something else we could do is to not do stripes, but instead horizontal pieces. And then we would just basically put them together on the side and adjust from there. So that's basically the other way around. Both work depending on what you want to do. But both are okay. Just decide whichever one you prefer or whichever one sounds better to you. If you want to do it on the side or on the top. So I think that the first version might be a little bit more easy. So I'm going to do the striped version. So with different stripes that we're going to put together into a skirt. So that would be the first step then, what I'm going to do. And then what we can also do is just do them a little bit closer to one another on top so that we have a nice skirt shape, but it should be pretty easy to do. Okay, so now we're going to do our stripes and you're going to see that's going to be pretty easy. So I have here 4 pieces that are turned the other way around, so we want them pretty side facing away from us. And then we're going to do two at a time. So we're going to take 2, put them pretty side on pretty side, align everything, and then basically do a stitch on the longer side to connect them. yeah, so when you align everything, just take care that you have about the same distance away from the edge when you do the stitch with all pieces, so that you have the exact same length with all of the stripes that you do, since we're going to have a couple. So yeah, then when we open them up, they're going to look like this in the end, and that's exactly what we want. Then we're going to continue with the same method basically until we have all of the pieces connected. So again, pretty side onto one of the corners, one of the squares, and then we just pin again and we basically do a new stitch. So you can do this all at once and then do 3 stitches one after another, or you can do each stitch and square individually, whatever you think is easier. But yeah, just make sure to think about the distance away from the edge, and apart from that, you're good to go. So now that we did this, we want to check if our distances are all the same. So the basically height of each square. And yeah, then you can basically take, if you're satisfied with it, you can basically take that as your standard for every other stripe, which is exactly what we're going to do. So again, we're going to do the same method, pretty side on pretty side. Then we're going to pin everything, make sure that the connected spot is in the exact same place as the other one. And then we're basically going to do again the same thing with the stitching. So if you want the edges to be nice and straight, you can basically iron over them when you're done. That way they are going to be this way, but you're going to see that they're kind of weird before you do that. So just so you know, that's completely normal due to all of the stitches that we're doing, but it's not a bad thing. So yeah, you can also do one stitch extra, and that way it's gonna stay flat even if you don't iron over it later. So what you want to do is basically just go on the outside of each stitch that you did, and on the side that kind of pops up, and it's always going to be one or the other, not both, then just do a stitch there. Or you can do 2 stitches on both sides so that it's all nice and symmetrical. So now that we did all of the stitches together for 2 stripes, we can put the 2 stripes together. We make sure that the length is good, and in this case it is, and then we're going to start by doing that, or you can do multiple stripes and then connect all of them at the same time. This is completely up to you, but I want to show you how you can do this so that no matter how many stripes you have, you can always do it nicely. So what you want to do is again align pretty side on pretty side, or connect these 2 inner edges so that we do the stitch there. So you're gonna lose about 1 centimeter there for the stitch as well. So as I said, I'm gonna do 4 stripes in the front and 4 in the back, which means that I'm gonna have a total of 8 squares or 8 stripes total, or 8 squares per row. So what we want to do now is just check if the length is good. In my case it is, but if you have a different width, just make sure that you have enough. And then here we're going to do them a little bit tighter and on the bottom as close to the edge as possible so that we get a nice shape for our skirt. So here I have my wooden ruler, but you can of course use any other kind you have. And now what we want to do is just mark an even diagonal about 3 centimeters away from the top, and then all the way to the end on the bottom. We just want to pull a straight line so that we know where our stitches are supposed to go and how we're supposed to pin our pieces of fabric or our stripes. Okay, then we're putting it pretty side on pretty side, and then we can get to the pinning. So what's important is that all of your stitches that you already have are aligned, so just make sure that those crossings are one on top of each other, and then we just want to go across this line here that we have first pin, and then we're gonna do a stitch right there. So these are all of the stripes now connected together, and you can see what they look like. So just the open side here is a little bit larger on the top because we didn't do the narrower stitch there, but we're gonna get there in a moment. And now all that we need to do is the zipper, and then we're gonna have our skirt all done. So now we come to our zipper. And now we're going to do it, of course, on the open edges that we have because it's going to be the easiest that way. And we just want to stitch it onto the one side basically and then onto the other. I'm going to do it on top since that's the regular way how to do it. So the bottom we're going to connect anyway since it is the wider part, and yeah, we're going to put here pretty side on pretty side and basically do a regular straight stitch. You can see here that my zipper ends exactly where my squares are, where my second square ends and my third begins. So that's exactly what I wanted, but even if you don't have it that way, it doesn't really matter. I just decided to measure it that way because I think it looks really neat in the end. So yeah, then what we want to do, we can go around here a little bit and do the top like that, so that we have a really nice edge on top when we're done and so that we can kind of have a seam there. So first we're going to mark where our zipper is going to stop or start. Then we're going to align the edge just like we did so far, and we're going to check if everything is where it's supposed to be. And then we're going to basically do again the exact same line, the diagonal line that we did so far. So 3 centimeters on top and then none on the bottom. And then we're going to stitch it up just to the middle. And then from the middle up, we're going to do the zipper in there as well. And yeah, that's basically all there is to it. Just make sure that you really nicely align everything because it's going to be a lot neater in the end that way. So each of these corners should be on top of one another. So now I finished this side here, and you can see the top is still open. I'm not pulling it too much because I don't want to rip the stitch that I already have, but now we want to do our zipper. So you see here the mark, and that's again going to be our line. So I'm going to follow that. You can see that it's a little bit less than 3 centimeters. That's just because I cut out the leftover piece of fabric, but it was definitely there. And yeah, what we want to do now is just fold it and do the zipper there. So now we want to do here a really nice seam so that it looks nice, and I'm going to show you the foot that I'm going to use. Is basically a zipper foot, which looks exactly like a normal sewing machine foot, but it's just the half of it is missing basically. So that's how you can do a zipper way more easily. You can use a regular one as well, but you need to be a little bit more careful because it's a little bit more tricky. So yeah, now what we're going to do is basically align everything, make sure that you like the position of your zipper, and then we're going to do the stitch as close to the zipper as possible without catching the actual zipper section into the stitch. And then we're going to do it on both sides, but I'm going to first do the one side and then the other because I think it's going to be a lot easier that way. You could do them at the same time, but I think it's going to be a little bit less challenging if you do it separately. So just make sure that you don't have anything going in here. So make sure that the zipper has enough room, because if you later catch the fabric on the zipper, it may rip and just look bad. So yeah, we're going to do the stitches now, and then I'm going to show you how to proceed. So as close to it as possible, but just make sure that you don't go too close because that's also not something that we want. And then we're going to do the seam on top. So here is my zipper now. You see that it's a little bit lower than the top of the fabric, which is exactly what I wanted. And you can see that it has enough room on both sides. So yeah, I also secured the stitch a couple of times on the bottom just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. And now I'm going to show you how you can seam the top so that it looks nicer. You can also do something like a decorative band here on top if you'd like. I'm going to show you the simpler version with just seaming the top so that it fits the zipper as well. So we're basically folding it inwards all the way to the zipper itself, so the top of the zipper, and then we're just going to iron over that and pin and then do a stitch to make sure that everything stays in place. So you start from the one side and then go all the way to the other, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So you can do this wider or narrower, or actually higher, taller if you'd like, but this is completely up to you and the amount of fabric you have on top. You can do more, you can do less, you can also do a decorative piece, as I said, on top with another piece of fabric, or you can just leave it as it is. That's completely up to you, but there are different options. So just make sure to think about what you want to have in the end when you plan out this step. So yeah, if you do a band on top, just make sure it matches the bottom as well and looks good. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So you can do the same thing on the bottom as well. You can do it longer, of course, then just do more boxes on the bottom. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to show you how to do the top first. Make sure that this section here, so whenever two squares meet, that you have the fabric facing just the one side, because it's going to be a lot neater in the end. It doesn't matter if it's left or right, just make sure that it's not wrinkled or doing anything weird. And then we're just going to pin everything to keep it in place, and we just want to go all the way around basically with the pins, and then we're going to do a stitch. We're going to secure the beginning and the end, and that's it. So this is what it can look like. You see here I did a twin stitch, which are basically two stitches, one next to another. And then I did that twice. So I have a total of 4 stitches. I hope you can see it on here since it's pretty subtle and all in the same color. But yeah, this is what the top looks like. Now you can do the same on the bottom here, or you can leave it just as it is with the little fraying effect. So that's completely up to you. But yeah, it would be basically the same thing. Again, just fold it inwards for as much as you want and then pin and stitch up. So if you decide to do this extra step, then I would recommend to just make sure that all of the edges on the bottom are equally long, or that you have a really straight line on here. So sometimes the corners are a little bit outwards, and we want to fix that so that we have a really nice edge. This is something that you can mostly see well, so just fix the spots where you think it doesn't look as good, or you can do one square or one stripe and then measure its length and basically just do that and take that as a standard and do that with all of the rest and check if the length is exactly the same. And then when you fix all of the edges, you can get to folding it inwards, pinning it, and then to doing the actual stitch all around. So this is what my finished piece looks like, and I wanted to show you the bottom here. I'm really satisfied with how it turned out, and it's really neat. As I said, you could have left it with the fraying effect, but I like the straight edge here that I have on the bottom. You can see the lovely shape that kind of goes wider as we go down, and then on the top also a nice seam and a zipper on the side. So yeah, this is all that I wanted to show you for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. You can, of course, do many different shapes of skirts and different styles, but I just wanted to show you a beginner's way to do patchwork projects. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to shoot a thumbs up if you did. You can also subscribe to our channel, and if you'd like to stay notified every time I post something new, make sure to click on the notification bell. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye!